Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm a third year aerospace engineering student, and I'm going to be talking about Power BI today. My journey is a little different to some of the other people you've heard. I didn't really fall into this community. Um, I more looked over the shoulder of my mum, who was already in it, and copied and learnt through her. But the really important thing for me today is to show you how amazing Power BI is and all the fun things you can do in it. So we're going to look at importing data and transforming it in Power Query, which is something that if you've ever worked in Excel or across the Power Platform, you will find Power Query. We're going to look at some relationships and some modeling, which is similar to some of the things you might have seen if you've ever seen a database. But also we're going to look at the visualizations. We're going to do this by looking at how to crack a Caesar cipher, which is one of the simplest kinds of cipher known to man. And has been used all throughout time just to hide data. So we'll take something from going completely garbled encoded text into clear text. When you look at Power BI, there's kind of four main stages. You import, you transform, you model, and then you visualize data. And people seem to think that these are equal, or that they want to spend most time on the visualizations because it's fun. But really, you have to look at the data first. So this is going to be pretty data heavy. I will show you some of the fun visualizations, don't worry. And there will be bits that I will warn you. Some of this, it takes a while to get used to. It's a lot of fun, and there's a massive community about people who are going to help you with this back end. And when you get it looking right, it's so satisfying. Just don't focus on the visualizations till you've got the data done. So we're going to head straight into a demo. We're going to go straight in, have a look at Power BI, and then afterwards I'll tell you a little bit more about how I got into it and where I am now and what I'm planning on doing. But when you load up Power BI, it's going to look something like this. I'm not signed in because my university doesn't let me. But you just start by importing. You can kind of import from anywhere. Excel's always where I start because it's just something I know. And you have all these tables you can see, and you can just click them. You can decide what you want to import now. You can always come back and get more data in later. You don't have to front end all of it in. And it gives you some time and some space. We're then going to go click on transform data and have a look at what we have. So I have three things here. I have an alphabet to ASCII, so that's turning alphabets into numbers. I have the encoded text, which is the text that looks completely like nonsense right now, but by the end of it, you'll see it's a poem. And then I also have frequencies, which is the letters to the English frequencies for the English language. And yeah. So I start by adding an index, and I split out that big, horrible chunk of data to be one letter a row, just to help me see it easier. And then the next thing I did was reference. So that means that I take that table and I duplicate it, but it's still linked to the original, which gives us chance to play about with it. And if something goes wrong, I can go back to the original. And when you're learning, knowing how to do that reference means that you can go wrong as many times as you like in Power Query, and you don't have to worry about it at all. You can just go back to your reference. Ignore the extra steps that just appeared. I went wrong when I videoed this, and so we'll jump back and we'll do them again in a minute. This is the first little bit of code you're going to see me do. This I looked up on the internet and just was like, okay, I want to turn a character to a number. And it's the code's literally character to number, which when you start Googling things like that, I don't write this code from scratch. I Google it and copy someone else's work because it's easier to do that. And it means it's more likely to work. And it means you probably can find that person and go be like, I tried doing this with that bit of code you wrote and it didn't work. And that will really help and get you into the community. And they're all so supportive when you're like, oh, I don't know what I did. A lot of this will look super similar to Excel. So here we're just going to filter out anything that doesn't have the ASCII number of a letter. So that's less than 65 or greater than 90, which takes out all your spaces, your full stops, your commas. And yeah, you can see it writes that code for you. If you want to learn how to write, you can. So this is all in M, but you don't need to. You can do this all just by pressing buttons. This is adding a comment, a really useful thing, so that when you forget why you did a step, you can see it happen again later. This is the only one I write in this. If I was doing this for myself, I probably would write a lot more, but to save on time, I haven't written them all in like I would have. Choose columns is also wonderful. If you can, always like choose columns, because if you see the little cogs over on this side over here, this means you can go and edit that step later and you can adjust it. And Power Query looks big and scary, but most of the time you can just go back and change something slightly and fiddle with it. We are now going to group all those letters and get a count of how many times each letter appears. This is so useful for decrypting ciphers because it means that you can compare it to the English language and the percentages and be like, oh, well, that letter's probably an E because it fits where an E would be in the frequencies. This doesn't quite match perfectly, but we'll see that later. We add an index column to our frequencies to match an index column that's going to appear on here so that we can compare those two data sets next to each other. If you have two data sets, but you're like, I don't have anything unique so I can look at them together, index columns are your friend. And if in doubt, put an index column on it because it will help you out in the long run. The amount of times you're like, oh, I need something to link these two together and I don't have anything quite yet. An index column. Right now we are merging queries, so we're gonna bring two tables together basically, because you'll see we only had 25 letters. There are 26 in the English alphabet, and so I wanted to find out what the missing letter was. I, however, didn't name my columns properly. This is a thing I'm really bad for, and it really helps if you name your columns. It means in the long run, when you're coming back and looking at steps, you can work, oh, I need to link this and this. And you're not trying to guess, wait, was it column 1? Was it column 2? Was it something else? That caused an error because column 1 doesn't exist anymore. But you click on the cog, you re-put it back, and it will work. We're then going to expand that out and only take that alphabet column so we can find out what our missing letter was. We're going to once again have to move all the punctuation because we don't want it right now because it would mess up the frequencies that we are using. So just as you would in Excel, go down, scroll, remove all the bits you don't want. Works exactly the same. If you have used Excel even just a little bit, a lot of that will transfer straight into Power Query and into being able to use Power BI in that same way. We then chose columns to remove the extra column we don't need. And then at this point, I realized we don't need that index column. So I think I'm about to remove it because it's not right anymore. So got rid of it, had to go work back through being like, okay, where's the error come from? What step wanted that index column to still be there? This step. So, and then it goes and it works again. So you can really easily just go through when you find an error, go back through your steps, work out what the first step that error appears in is, and click on the cog, and it will help you work out how to get rid of that step again and just go through it. This time I add an index. If you use the drop down arrow, it will make sure you start at 1 or 0 when you want to, and it will stop you having to fill with other things. But if you just click on index column itself, it will always start as a 0. So you can now see we have all 26 letters. We're going to close and apply and go back to this dashboard. So relationships. Relationships are how we link our tables together. They're how we tell Power BI that the index in one table links to the index in another table, but not to the index in that third one. So encoded text frequencies, those indexes weren't following the same thing. But in frequencies and in both frequency tables, the index is the same. It's telling us which is the largest, has the largest percentage and which has the smallest percentage. Yeah, and a lot of this is just bits you pick up over time and you're like, why does it not work? And for me, it's always, I didn't do the relationships right. But sometimes it might be something else, and it all interplays quite nicely. You'll notice those indexes, they start on different numbers. I wasn't meant to do that, so I'm going to go straight back into transform data. And I'm going to go to encoded text, and I'm going to change 0 to a 1, but you could also have just clicked on that cog to do it, and you can do it the same way without ever having to touch the code. I grew up with bits of code around the house, and so I haven't been scared by it. But if you are, the cogs are always there to help. And there are always ways to do it that leave you with a cog. So this is the graph of the English frequencies. The largest is E, and the smallest is letters like Q and Z that we don't use as frequently. I could put the count straight in now, but it's not a percentage right now. It's a big number. It's just the actual numbers themselves. So we're now in Power BI itself. We are using a thing called DAX. Again, a little bit of code. There probably are ways to do this without code. I couldn't find them, but once again, I'm using some. It's something I've used all the time in Excel. So yeah, some just tells it add up every single thing in this column, or in this group of cells, or in this little area, and it will give you that number. You'll see I am clicking on columns wherever I can, so I don't get spelling mistakes. We're going to put that into a variable, which is like a little box that holds that data. It's not necessary. You can do it without it. This is more for cleanliness and being able to come back and look at this later, because this is a document I plan on editing and adjusting in the future to do more things. So I wanted it to be easy to look at and be easy to see. Return just says put this number in rather than any other number that you calculate. So we're just going to tell it to take the number from count and divide it by that total count, all of the letters together, that 962, and we get our percentages. We can then go back and put these on the same graph that our English frequencies were on, and it means that we can, well, for decryption especially, it means I can look and be like, okay, this is probably a straight shift or a straight 1-to-1. Everything, one letter goes to one letter. Nothing fancy is happening. It's just from here to here, and I don't have to worry about it. So we're then going to add a table. You need to make sure you click off previous visualizations before you add more. It's a thing that happens often, and it's not hard to fix. It's just a little bit annoying. But yeah, we're going to put both our letters in so we can be like, okay, so our highest frequency is this. So what maps to an A in the encrypted text? What maps to a B? What maps to a C? So you can see here we have a section of the alphabet. So D, E, and F are in the right order. And that I is actually in the same right place as well. So it means that I'm like, okay, maybe L to E, which is 19 if a cipher shift, maybe that will be the right number. That's kind of the first clues I get as to how we're solving this, and seeing sections of the alphabet linked like that means that it tells me it's not just a random letter to letter, it's shifted in the way a Caesar cipher is shifted. This is just adding tooltips. So this just means when you hover over a graph, you can see what that data actually is, and it can be really useful when you have more complicated data sets than what I have, or when you're playing about with other things. I believe my sister used something similar when she did a floor plan of a starship in Power BI. It's that same sort of, it could be anything, and you can just hover over and see that data, and it's there, and you don't have to go search and find for it. What I'm adding now is a slicer. This is something that allows you to input a number in. So this is going to be the number that we're like, okay, we think it's Caesar shifted by this much. When I was recording this, I forgot to check the number, which you'll see later. So I had to fiddle around a little bit to find it. But you can just shift around. It doesn't change anything on the screen right now, but we're about to do a little bit that has a bit more code. It's some basic if statements, and honestly, if you were planning on doing something like this, Google it. Go look it up. Don't just try and write it from scratch. We're going to start by doing a bit in the table because I like to split it out away from my dashboard as much as possible. So it's in my tables so I can look at the numbers. It helps you to kind of keep track of what everything is doing. But there was a slight necessary evil at the end of this. So we're going to add a new column. This column is just going to use the fact that in our ASCII to alphabet table and our encrypted text table, which is the table you can see on screen, we have all the letters we're expecting to see. We have the relationship will be there. I hadn't put it in quite yet when I actually recorded me doing this. So we're going to have to, go add that back in. But right now, you're going to see a whole bunch of errors. And that can be scary, but often it's I did a related. And the error actually was like, there isn't a relationship for this. So I went and I just put it in. I just dragged the two things I were like, these two need to be connected. Drag one to the other, and suddenly it works. And you don't have to worry about, what actually was that bit of code that I had found? Or what actually was I trying to do? Because it will do it for you. This next bit is less relevant to trying to actually decrypt it. This is just I wanted it to look nice at the end. And one of the bits we use at the end, concatenate, which is a bit of a complicated thing, and I will explain it when we get there, doesn't like spaces. So we just have turned all our spaces into not being spaces. This is a bit of code. I'm not gonna and this is something you should aim to be able to do. This isn't something you should look at doing today or tomorrow, but maybe at some point be like, you know what, I'm gonna try it. And if it breaks, it doesn't matter. You can put a tweet out and you'll probably get 10 different answers of this is how I would do it. With some of us giving you very complicated solutions and some people being like, yeah, just click that one button and you'll be fine. This is doing is taking the number from the cipher shift and using it to shift all the letters without shifting any of the punctuation by that amount. If you look as you type, it tells you what it wants. So it's like your logical test is if it does this. So if it is a letter, add shift it. If it isn't a letter, don't. That logical test is it a letter? And it's not necessarily the hardest thing to do once you get your head around it. And this is the simple stuff. This is the stuff that also you could find a lot of it in Excel. You can find a lot of it around. And if you can't get your head around it, go find someone who can sit down and help talk you through it, who knows where to look for the problems. The best way to learn, so this is DAX, the best way to kind of get stuck in for parts of Power BI is to go find someone that will show you all the low code bits and then be like, okay, but to do that really fun thing, here's a little bit of code you need, and build it up slowly. So you see, most of what I did today didn't need code. It didn't need it. I got the answer of what the cipher was without any code. Well, minus a little bit here or there. But this last bit is just a presentation thing. It's just I wanted to be able to show you what it did and be able to show you things interacting on screen in a way that can be hard to show. But the nicest thing about Power BI is that your data can interact with itself. If I had clicked on a letter in that table on the left-hand side, the data on the screen would change a little bit. The graph would look weird, but now you can see as I move the slider, that text changes. And when I hit 19, our number that we got from the table on the left, it's there. It has the poem. And you'll notice the hashes are there because it doesn't like apostrophes, and that's okay. because my hashes were my check mark for maybe this won't work. And it's allowed to. You're allowed to break it and be like, I don't know what I did. And the best thing to do is to have someone to ring up. I am super lucky that I have been in this community long enough to have a couple of people I know I can always message and be like, I think I broke it. I broke what I'm doing. But also, what I would say is go find us. If you message us on Twitter, if you put a tweet out with a hashtag and at anybody who you think might even be in the right spheres, you'll get answers, you'll get help. So I'm going to move off that really quick intro to showing you what sort of things you can do. But also be aware, if you are really like the visualization stuff, which isn't my forte, it's not what I'm good at, trust me, I would love it if someone came and did my visualizations for me. So if this end bit of getting it to look nice, but I wouldn't say I have done well, if that happens and you're like, oh, I would like it to look nice, I think I could be that artsy person, come shout, and I'm sure someone will be like, cool, I need someone to show me how to be artsy, and maybe I'll help you with the back and help you with getting that data right. There's place for both types of people, and we need both. We can't get away with just having data people, and we can't get away with people who just want to do the front. So I have a couple of slides kind of showing you where your next steps might be. So the first one is go find what Microsoft are doing. Look at this Twitch channel. I occasionally just pop it on when I'm doing other things to have something to be like, oh, what's going on in this bit of the community I don't know about. Go look at these Microsoft resources. They are incredible. And then the next two, don't worry about getting down the links. They're on my last slide as well. But go look at certifications. I have looked at certifications and have always been like, not now, not today, but they're free right now. And I would go take them while they're free because they're a really good way to encourage yourself to go learn it. I learned most of what I showed you today because I was like, I promised to do a presentation. I should go learn it. And if you're like, well, I'm going to set myself the idea of having a qualification, maybe by like the end of a couple of months, like I want a qualification by this date, you'll go learn it and you'll enjoy it. But also if you're like, I want to turn a Starship into a Power BI report, go do it. If you're like, I want to look at cracking ciphers through Power BI, go do it. This isn't necessarily what most people use it for, but it's how I've learned and it's been so much fun to do. But yeah, go look at the cloud skill challenge they've got up. I know I will be. Yeah, and then the other one is go look at Microsoft Learn, go look at their Power Platform stuff, go and look at their Power BI resources. They are really good and they've really helped me and so many people start on our journeys to getting good at this. I have been learning this alongside my degree. My degree doesn't give me necessarily the space to learn the Power Platform as much as I want to. It doesn't necessarily give me the opportunities to play with data the way I want to. And it's kind of what started me really down this route was an itch that it didn't feel like the path I was on for the career that my degree is looking at is the career path I want to be on. I don't want to work with 3D software and CAD and be an engineer. I want to play with data and I want to look at that end. I want to get to solve problems and solve problems with easy solutions. And for me, the Power Platform has given me the opportunity to go get those solutions and to go start on that journey and not have to pay for more education, not have to look at getting a second degree to go reskill myself. It's also giving me an opportunity to look at jobs that are going to fit around the lifestyle I want to lead, that are going to allow me to do some of the some extra learning alongside my degree so I can be competitive at the end of it. And for me, I don't think it matters whether I end up working in this community or not. If I get to, if it just like makes my CV look a bit better as a university student, or even if it's just I get to go play with Power Apps for a summer and someone will pay me to do it, that sounds incredible. And it's go out and go try and push the limits, because every time I push the limits and I've seen other people push the limits, I'm always surprised that we're still going. I'm always surprised that we haven't broken it yet. And yeah, sometimes we push the limits and it doesn't quite work, but half the time you find a workaround, or you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to go learn something new. It won't work as a Power App, but maybe it'll work as something else. And with the Microsoft stuff, I've always felt I had the space, and I can always be like, oh, there's this other thing. And it's go find what you want to do. Go push the boundaries of what you can do, and don't stop. Because if you always feel like you're learning this stuff, it feels like you're doing it right. Because every time I go in and I see a new button or I see a new feature, or I'm like, they've made it in this way, they've made it more accessible, it makes me excited to go play and excited to go try. So don't necessarily worry about this as like, I want to do this thing for work. That's great if you have those plans. If not, maybe just go play and go try and break it. So this is my last slide. These are all the people from the community who you should go find. You can find me on Twitter at dyspraxicrogue. You can find the 2 Microsoft links in the middle, and all the white links are people I've been recommended for you to go find. This will be on my Twitter straight afterwards, and thank you.
That was amazing. 3 reasons. 1, I continue to not be a data person, but I understood what she was saying. And I love how she said, there are people who like 3D modeling and visualization of stuff. Let them do that. Let me just play with data. That makes me so happy because she's found her place in the data community. Second thing, do you like how she's career switching in real time? Like on this screen, she's career switching. She's saying, I'm in aeronautical engineering, very hard area, but I don't see myself working there as a traditional aeronautical engineer for the rest of my life. So I'm going to learn all these data skills and craft my own job and craft my own career to fill the lifestyle that I want to lead. And third, she's out there showing us all how to do it in real time as she's doing it. This is a student in university who's seriously schooling us grown-ups on how to be an ant person, how to have the career of your dreams.
I'm excited to retire one day and be the gardener of the ginormous building that she will no doubt be in charge of, full of amazing people. So.